How's it going, everyone? Faupel here. I did want to tell you about something I'm hoping will become a regular thing on this channel. Hopefully it'll help you guys out, and it's something that will give me something to work towards pretty regularly. I'm gonna call it the Creators Challenge to help you guys challenge yourselves and push yourselves, not just as songwriters, which would be where I fall, but also just as creators in general. Any kind of artist, I'm hoping this will challenge you to think outside the box and really just push yourself in ways that I will dictate. So if you guys don't mind taking this ride with me, I'd like to see your iterations of this at the very end of it. So this first Creators Challenge is going to be about creative freedom, and we're going to do that by exploring words. And for this particular challenge, you're going to need something to write with and something to write on. If you prefer to do this digitally, that's perfectly fine. You can use your laptop, you can use your phone, whatever. If you want to kick it old school with a typewriter or sheet and paper, absolutely fine. Just be sure to use your preferred method of text and we'll get rolling. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you guys know that this challenge comes in 2 parts, and you shouldn't do part 2 before having done part 1. That seems pretty obvious, but I mean, you shouldn't even know about part 2 before you've completed part 1. So please, if you have any intention of doing this challenge, complete part 1 before you even listen to what part 2 is. There's something to it, I promise. So the first part of this challenge involves you writing 3 paragraphs. 3 paragraphs that may or may not have anything to do with each other, and as long or as short as you would like them to be. 3 sentences per paragraph is what I would recommend as a minimum. And as you get started writing your paragraphs, I'm gonna say one thing, put one rule on this whole thing. As you start writing, as things come to mind that you're gonna put down on the page, you can't erase anything. Now listen to me, because this has to make sense. This is the whole point of the challenge. You can't erase anything. No backtracking, no scratching things out, no erasing, nothing. I'll even say that once the words enter your mind, you have to write them down. And once you start a sentence, even if it's just in your head, not even written down yet, you have to finish it. Put it down on the page. Those are the rules. I make them. The whole point of not letting you erase anything is that you just need to write. Just write. Now you know the rules. 3 paragraphs, minimum of 3 sentences probably, may not have anything to do with each other, with anything that comes to mind. So I'm gonna give you about 10 seconds running time of this video for you to pause it, get finished with your challenge, and move on to part 2. Okay, so you've paused, you've started, etc. We're on part 2 now. Now I'm gonna say again that if you have any intention of participating in this challenge, you need to stop now and complete part 1 before you continue with the rest of the video. If you even know what part 2 is before you finish part 1, the whole challenge is rendered useless. So I'm gonna give you one more opportunity to pause this video, go back to part 1, finish it, and then you can come back and finish part 2. So if you're still sticking with us, I'm gonna assume that you've already completed part 1 or you have no intention of participating in the challenge. Either way, here we go. Okay, so you have your 3 paragraphs that may or may not have anything to do with each other, at minimum of probably 3 sentences, and everything that came to your head in this span of time, with no filtering, no nothing. We're gonna use this as our starting point for what comes next. We're gonna write a song. We're going to take the 3 paragraphs and write a song with them, a verse and a chorus. You can use sentences from any part of your 3 paragraphs, but your 3 paragraphs are the only content you can put into this song. You can change words to make them rhyme better as long as they're synonyms. Depending on how long your paragraphs are, you may have to do a good bit of trimming because you're only doing a verse and a chorus. And depending on how dissimilar your paragraphs are, you may need to do some creative maneuvering to even get your song to make sense. There's a few things you need to think about when you're putting together a song, such as rhymes, sentence structure, but that's the challenge. Now, to add some actual rules to this so things just don't go around willy-nilly, first rule is just your 3 paragraphs as the only thing you can put into this. And 2, no adding sentences. So this is probably something that I need to clarify, even though I kind of wish I didn't have to clarify it. Your song needs to make sense. So you guys can go ahead and pause this video, finish up with your songs. When you come back to this video, we're going to reflect on the purpose of the whole thing. If you need to take some time to finish the song and then come back to the video, that's perfectly fine. So pause this video, and when you come back, we'll do the reflection. You're all finished. You have your songs, your verse and your chorus. We're gonna go over what the purpose of the whole thing was. So you have your personal takeaway, but I want you to add this to it. I came up with this challenge a couple of years ago for the same purposes that I'm making this video, just to challenge people's creative element and get them to push themselves a little bit. But what inspired the challenge as a whole was a friend calling me out on some lyrics that I had written. My friend was an editor of mine at the time, and she was saying that the lyrics I was producing sounded forced as opposed to other lyrics I had written. Sounded like I was trying to make a song. I know that sounds dumb, but it sounds like I was making a song for the purpose of making a song. And she suggested that I just free write. Not write for the purpose of writing a song or even for sharing with anyone, but just write to write anything that comes to my mind. And so I did, and in the aftermath, I ended up creating things that were a lot more organic. At some point, decided that I needed to fit a mold, or even subconsciously be structured to something. It can be good and helpful to have that structure, those guidelines, but not when it feels like you have to follow those structures and guidelines. All right, so step 2 is not as apparent. Why do we take everything that we were free writing and then have to trim it down? Well, that's the point. It was to find the golden nuggets. Maybe it was right away, maybe it was during the process, but at some point you realized you weren't going to be able to keep everything you had written. You realized you were going to have to trim this down somehow. And that's the point. Most of the things probably aren't going to make the cut. You had to be pretty selective about what went into the song and what didn't. But even more so, every single thing that you wrote down on that page has its place. Maybe out of 1,000 sentences, you have one perfect sentence. While that renders every other sentence not usable, would you have been able to get that golden sentence without the rest of them? A saying that the same editor friend ended up using a lot was, "Don't discount your dirt." We have to sift through the dirt to find the gold. Now, this mostly stems out of years of frustration of not being able to finish things and having to go through a million different iterations of the same song to come up with the finalized version. But I guarantee that I wouldn't have been able to come up with that finalized version if I hadn't gone through every single version previously. So that was the purpose of the challenge. But again, you probably have your own takeaway. If you do, leave it down below in the comments. That's the end of this video, guys. If you liked this video, subscribe here to this subscribe orb that I'm holding in my hand. This is magic, by the way. This is how I'm doing this. And if you like this video, give us a like, and I'll see you guys next time.